Welcome again to episode 2 of, I'm going to call this thing State of Decay. It's kind of a fun wordplay. I don't know. It's kind of dumb, but I couldn't think of anything better. So I've listened to the first 2 eps, and I'm not going to lie to you. They don't sound good. They do not sound good. Well, there's not a whole lot I could do about that because I'm just like you probably heard that thump. That's just the road, man. So just think of this as, say I'm bored on the way home and I just gave you a call and we're just having a little chat, okay? Well, the sound quality is not going to be the best, you know. So hey, if the sound quality is that bad, I'm sorry. It's not good. I know that. Stop yelling at me. I'm just trying to do a thing. I was messing with some of the other 2 episodes and I was trying to like make them sound good, and it's pretty impossible, really. But at one point I had this effect on it that made it sound like I was on an AM radio, and for 2 seconds I'm like, well, that makes sense. Like it's like a little radio show, but it didn't sound good. Like I couldn't see the point of making it sound worse on purpose. So I don't know. But yeah, I've had an extremely long day today, and I'm ready to get home. I hope to watch some horrible movie. I was recently recommended the movie Blood Rage. It's like an 80s slasher movie, but apparently it's like, one of those so bad it's good type deals. We'll see. Might be good. Let's see. We watched the new Hellraiser last night. I'm a pretty big fan of the first 3 Hellraiser movies. They're pretty great. They're kind of off the wall, but they're hard not to love, I think. If you're into horror, it's got some kind of gross, like people walking around with no skin on, people who are just like bones and muscles and stuff and like blood everywhere. But there's just something, especially the first movie, it's like so sexy. Oh my god, there's just something real, and I think some people will hear that who have seen it and go, what? But I definitely, I think some people know what I'm talking about. The first Hellraiser is like super sexy, and I don't know, it's pretty good. I have to say, like, even though the effects aren't incredible or anything, but like, just you gotta love Pinhead. Doug Bradley's amazing. I've had a thing for him for a long time. He's amazing. Yeah, those are great. I haven't. I've tried with a lot of Clive Barker stuff. He's the one that did that, wrote the book and everything. And there's not a whole lot of Clive Barker that I've loved. I know he's like regarded as a horror genius, but there isn't a whole lot of Clive Barker stuff that I've like been in love with aside from Hellraiser. I enjoyed Midnight Meat Train. It's a movie with, I think, Bradley Cooper and maybe 1 or 2 other people you might know. It's a weird movie, but I dug it. It was a cool like one-off type movie if you like weird horror movies. We also watched the movie The Strangers for the first time, and I can't believe we haven't seen it before. I remember seeing the trailer and going, okay, I think I know what that is. I don't know if I really need to see this. It's like a home invasion movie. And I heard all the reviews, and I think maybe someone ruined it for me back then, and that's why I didn't want to watch it. But to be honest with you, that movie came out in like, I want to say like 2008 or something like that. I didn't remember anything. I just remembered that it's Liv Tyler and whoever the husband is, the guy from Underworld, who is the hybrid werewolf vampire guy. I don't remember the actor's name. They're just in a house, and then some people show up, and they're like, they're like got masks on and whatever. And that's really what the movie is. It's good for what it is, but and it tries like I won't ruin the end if you haven't seen it. There is a sequel coming out, which is part of the reason why I wanted to watch it. I won't ruin the ending, but it's like I get what the attempt is with that movie, like what they're trying to do, the statement they're trying to make. I just don't know if I loved it. That that I don't know if that did it for me. It's fine. I like a good thriller, but it was fine. It's not one of my favorites of all time, but it was enjoyable. I would probably, if someone wanted to watch it, I would maybe watch it again. But it's not in my top 10 or anything. I wonder what my top 10 are horror movies. I'm going to talk about Evil Dead. If I keep doing these, there will be lots of Evil Dead talk. Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, and even Evil Dead 1. I always leave Evil Dead 1 out, and that might be because Evil Dead 2 is just a remake of it. But I don't know. Evil Dead 1's also amazing. I just two and Army of Darkness are my favorite movies ever, apart from like Star Wars and maybe one or two other things. But yeah, those are the best. Those would be at the top. Somebody asked me the other day, like, what's your favorite genre of horror, like subgenre? And I just said horror comedy, and I think that's the way to go. I love comedy, I love horror, and I love combining the two when you can do it right. There are very few that really nail it. I love Tucker and Dale versus Evil. It's more comedy than horror, but it's in there. I love the Evil Dead, Army of Darkness. Those are great. Evil Dead 2 is more horror with some great comedy. Army of Darkness is more comedy with some good horror. Um, I love Cabin in the Woods. That movie is super smart. It's very funny. I love the sense of humor. That's a great one. I don't know if What We Do in the Shadows is a horror at all. It just deals with, there's like vampires in it. It's definitely a comedy. That one's like 85% horror, 15%. No, 85% comedy, 15% horror. And that's a scientific number that I just calculated in my head here. So yeah, if you haven't seen, I think what I'm trying to say is, if you haven't seen What We Do in the Shadows, if you liked Thor Ragnarok, What We Do in the Shadows, basically think of the humor from Thor and just slap it over a fake vampire documentary that's a lot like The Office, where they interview the vampires, and it's like a fake documentary about these vampires who all live in a house together. It's very funny. I can't recommend it enough. Man, yeah, that What We Do in the Shadows is good. I have movies that I will just put them on before bed, just like all the time. Now, generally, I don't like to sleep with the TV on, but Steve likes the TV on, so I will, you know, just wear a sleep mask or just, try to cover my face somehow because the light from the TV always bothers me. But I like to listen to something. If we didn't watch movies, I would definitely be putting music on. And I used to sleep to music or like audiobooks. Always an audiobook or a podcast or something. Although it would be like an audiobook that I've heard before. So like for like 10 years or more, I had the cassette tapes of the Harry Potter audiobooks. And I would put those on, and because I had heard them so many times, it wasn't a big deal that I was falling asleep, and I would kind of rewind, the next night and kind of find my spot where I was and try to, continue. So for the first couple of minutes, I would actually be listening, but then, I would fall asleep, and that would be it. Hang on, that's making so much noise. I had some bottles of water in a bag, and it was so noisy. Anyway, listening to an audiobook before bed is a fantastic idea. Really put me to sleep, and I learned everything about Harry Potter. I'm like a Harry Potter super knowledge base. All the stupid like the ingredients of the potions that they need to know. Like I have stupid words, wolfsbane, boomslang skin. Just I don't even know. Bubotuber pus. I just have these things in my head that even if you've read the books a couple of times, you might not instantly recognize because they're kind of obscure. But it's all in there. It's all in there. Um, there's something about those Harry Potter books. Speaking of Harry Potter, I think this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I think we should remake those movies. Um, but keep the tone the same. If you watch the original, what are there 8? If you watch the original 8 movies, the tone shifts drastically as they go, and the tone in the last couple is more in line with what I would want it to be. It's a little darker, but I think you need if you remake Harry Potter, you need to keep the tone in check, and you need to keep the mystery. There's something about the first handful that's too kid friendly, and of course there are children's books. I understand that, but the kind of stuff that I liked as a kid was the stuff that was a little darker and maybe not necessarily for kids, but I'm sure I could think of an example, but of course they're escaping me now. But keep the mystery, like keep it darker. I just think of like I don't know. I have a very specific image in my head of and like a feeling of what it would be like. It would be much. be much quieter and darker, and some people might say more boring, but I just would want it to be more real. Like, not quite Lord of the Rings. Like, okay, for example, the reason why I like Lord of the Rings movie, the trilogy, more than the Hobbit trilogy is because the Lord of the Rings trilogy is shot almost like a historical movie, almost like a war movie. It's historical feeling. It doesn't. It's definitely fantastic. Like, it has fantastical elements, but it feels more real. I don't know if that's the right word, but I don't know. It just feels like a war movie and like a historical document. But the Hobbit movies seem more like a we created this to be for kids. Tons of unnecessary CG. It's got all these stylized shots that just don't. It just didn't do it for me. The movies look good, and I love The Hobbit the book, but they just fail at the level of I don't know. They just fail for me, and there's no reason it needs to be three movies. But we don't have to talk about that. That's maybe for another day. What I'm saying is, if you can do Harry Potter a bit darker, because it is a very dark world and universe. There are some scenes that get it right. The whole tone of the last couple of movies is like much more bleak, and maybe I'm just that weirdo that wants it to be sad and dark and quiet. I just feel like that's more interesting. Like I don't know, you could do the Dursleys to be less silly and more evil and more cold, which is what I think they are in the book. They you know, she tries to make them a little more fun, I think, as they go. But I don't know. I want it to be a certain way, and I probably won't ever see that. But I would like a remake where it's darker. I think that'd be cool. It won't happen, but that'd be fun. I saw there's this fan made young Voldemort movie. I haven't watched it. Also, in the audiobooks, in the original versions of the audiobooks, I think maybe they went back and changed it. But in the original versions of the audiobooks, the Jim Dale version, who I prefer over Stephen Fry, which I know is insane because Stephen Fry is awesome. I think it simply comes down to I heard the Jim Dale ones first, and Stephen Fry. I mean, I love Stephen Fry. He's fantastic. But yeah, I just heard the Jim Dale ones first, and so those voices, he does all the voices. Stephen Fry kind of does the voices, but he sort of has like, here's a male voice, here's a female voice. That's about it. Or like, oh, McGonagall, okay, she's got more of an accent. Okay. But Jim Dale straight up acts like for Dumbledore, it's like, Harry, would you like to come to my office? Or whatever. Or like Hagrid. Hagrid is almost the same voice as he is in the movies. Uh, Hello there, Harry. You know, he does that. Or you know, just all the voices are very different. So like who's speaking even if the book doesn't say right away or whatever. And the Jim Dale ones, and he pronounces it Voldemort. Voldemort, like it's French or something. Voldemort, and apparently that's the way it was meant to be announced, pronounced, not announced. Apparently that's the intended pronunciation is Voldemort, which I think is a little sexier. I would say Voldemort, and I remember seeing the first movie, a little Danny Radcliffe with the wrong color eyes goes Voldemort, and I'm like, no, what? It's not Voldemort. Voldemort. Ooh, it rolls off the tongue. Voldemort. Voldemort. Yeah, I like Voldemort much more. But anywho, maybe they thought that would be too confusing for people. I don't know why that is. But yes, I say we use Voldemort. I say we remake the damn things, and we get 8 more movies. Also, probably more than 8. Like we could probably squeeze it out to 9. Probably like Goblet of Fire. The movie version of Goblet of Fire is such a tragedy. They cut out so many good things and made some weird decisions. Now, like, there's some stuff like they cut Winky the house elf out. We don't need Winky the house elf. She's she's just cry. I think her character just cries and is upset, but she's a very important character, and I think she should be in the movie. We don't need her, I guess, but I don't know. I think she should be there. And I always envision the house elves a little differently, but I guess they're pretty close in the movie. And like some of the creatures in the movies, like I don't know, they're supposed to be. I would like to see them try to make them a bit more realistic. They look very fantasy. Like the goblins are like, you know, they look. They don't look too. I'm not saying they look silly, but I think you could maybe make a goblin look more like a living creature and less like a rubber suit that someone's in. You know what I mean? If we can combine practical and CG and make him look alive, that'd be awesome. And not just Warwick Davis in a little outfit. Okay, please. Stand back. Those are 2 lines from the movie. That's all I remember. Grip hook. Anyway, if you don't know anything about Harry Potter and you just had to hear all that, I'm very sorry. What else? What else? I've seen those movies. I talked Harry Potter, and also it's not, I'm not going through a list of like this is what I meant to talk about. When I go to record this, there is nothing in my head. I'm just letting it flow. So, and I haven't edited anything yet. So if there's big moments of silence, there might just be big moments of silence. They announced Black Ops 4. I don't know if I talked about this last time. I'll just briefly say if we can go back to Black Ops 1 and make an interesting, realistic, time traveling, and when I say time traveling, I mean time hopping uh, shooter, I think that'd be interesting. Black Ops 1, even if you're not into first person shooters, Black Ops 1 was an interesting story because it spanned several decades. There was a mission in World War II, and then there was a mission, some stuff set during the Cold War, and like there was one mission where it's not a mission. Like the whole thing is like a playable cutscene where you go and meet JFK. Like I thought it was amazing. Like you pull up to the Pentagon, and you get out of a limo or something, and you're like led into this area, and you meet all these. I just thought it was really interesting, like historical figures. You're doing these secret black ops or whatever. I thought that was great. You get to go to all these interesting places. It's a modern game, but it's also there's like some Vietnam in there, like just some cool time hopping uh, gameplay. And I thought that was fun, and it changed things up a little bit. So for me, that was a big plus for the Black Ops. But I don't know. I know shooters aren't for everyone, but for me, I've always been a fan of, especially playing them online. I'm a big fan of like competitive shooters, and I always play through the story mode. I didn't finish Black Ops 3. I don't know if I even started Black Ops 3. Did I finish Black Ops 3? No, I did. I don't even. I started. I played the first mission, and that was about it. And I played. Oh no, I made it further in Black Ops 3. No, that was Infinite Warfare. It doesn't matter. They all kind of run together. I almost beat Advanced Warfare, the one with Kevin Spacey, who that's too bad. Um, but yeah, I've always enjoyed the campaigns. I like the World War II quite a bit. I guess you just have to be into shooters though. It's just something me and my friends have always done. Shooters. I have a hard time with RPGs. I know some people love them, and I do like them, but I've always had a hard time like with Zelda type things. I can't get it. I think it's just I don't care about the setting or the world or the character. Like there's nothing about them that interests me. Like I don't know what it is, but that just doesn't pique my interest. But like a dude with a chainsaw arm and a shotgun going back to medieval times is like the best idea of all time. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know why that's better than that, but it's just my taste, I guess. I can't argue it with it. It's just what it is, I guess. Yeah, there's just the Zelda never did it, and like I used to play like it's weird because I talk trash on a lot of these games, but then I've played so many of them, like Final Fantasy. I think my favorite one is 6, but even my favorite one, like I don't know if I'll ever like beat it again. I don't know if I'll ever go through it again. Those kind of games I've just sort of lost interest in. The only one I consistently play is like Pokemon Red or like Fire Red, the GBA version because it's better. Because it's almost like a comfort food, And sometimes you just get a craving. You're like, yeah, I could start a new game on Pokemon and you know get through that pretty quick and just have a good time. I tend to like just play it on my phone now because you can just emulate. And so I've just always having it on your phone, and it's like, yeah, I got 5 minutes. I could raise up my Bulbasaur or whatever. There's something about that game. I was at the right age. It just caught my attention, and I loved it. And I never grew out of the original games. Even when Gen 2 came out, I picked up Silver on day one and played it for a couple of hours and thought, I just want to play Red again. Pokemon Red was my jam. I don't know what it is, but Silver doesn't have this same luster or whatever it is. That might have been the first time when I looked forward to a sequel and then didn't. I realized it wasn't what I wanted, or I just wasn't. I just didn't love it. I don't know. I can't remember what the like. I think Silver and Gold are pretty. They're pretty universally loved, right? I'm pretty sure they are. So it's not like they were failures and people went, oh. I think maybe the problem's me. I was just so into Red and Blue that nothing would ever come close. And I was not well trained for RPGs at that age. I didn't really even have I didn't have much exposure to RPGs. There was no one. There's always what I always hear is like, oh, my older brother or my cousin or whoever got me into these games. Well, I didn't have any siblings, and my cousins were the ones that got me into a lot of games. But they were playing things like Twisted Metal, Tekken, GoldenEye, uh, what else? Metal Gear Solid, Castlevania, Metroid, like those kinds of games. Sure, more actiony kind of things. They love those. Like I remember playing Twisted Metal split screen with my cousins and just having a blast. Or like Mortal Kombat. So we played a lot of the darker, like more violent things. And it just always, my cousin lived down the street from me for a little while, and he would call and be like, "Hey, my mom said I should invite you over. Do you want to come play Resident Evil 2?" And what that means is, do you want to come and sit and watch me play Resident Evil 2 for 5 hours? I was not allowed to play, but I would come and sit and like we'd have snacks, and I would just watch him beat Resident Evil 2, and then eventually it was, hey, you want to come over and watch me beat Resident Evil 3? Okay, sure. So by the time I got my own PlayStation, I had seen Resident Evil 2 so many times. I was so prepared for it. Uh, it was amazing, and I was like so ready for it. Uh, I just dominated it the first time, and it was almost like, oh, I almost didn't need that because whatever, I had already seen that. Remember the PlayStation demo disc? I got one from Pizza Hut, and it had, I remember it had the Metal Gear Solid demo on it, and I played the demo, and it terrified me. It made me scared. Like, it felt like you're playing this adult thing. Keep in mind, I'm like 10. You're playing this adult thing, and it almost felt like, they're like, Snake, your mission is this, and there's nukes, and there's terrorists, and the government, and blah, blah, blah. And it felt like I had all this, like, I really took on the weight of the mission that Snake had, and I really took on everything, and the stress and the emotions. And it's like, if you fail, you're in trouble, and like, you can't be seen, it's a stealth mission, and blah, blah, blah. So, like, that feeling of playing hide and seek, and getting caught, terrifying. When you hear that, like Kojima is such a genius. He, he just captures that feeling of trying to stay hidden from someone and that them seeing you or whatever. He nails it. He nails it. It's so fun. I can't believe how much I love that game. It still holds up so well. But I remember playing it on the demo disc and being terrified of it, and kind of going, that's interesting. And then I read a review of it in a magazine, probably Electronic Gaming Monthly or something, and they loved it. They gave it like 10 or something, or close. And then I was like, that's interesting. I really should try that again. And then I remember I went to my local video store, and the guy was playing it. He was supposed to be working, I guess, but maybe they let him just set up and play games because whatever. There's nothing going on. It was like a locally owned place, and he was playing Metal Gear Solid. And I remember seeing him doing like a boss fight, and I'm like, oh my, that's amazing. That's so cool. I haven't seen this. This is really cool. And he convinced me to try it. And I went home and played the demo again, beat the demo, and I was like hungry for more. I couldn't believe it. I loved it. And I convinced my mom to get me the game. We were in, I must have gone on sale or something. We were in line at Walmart. I remember very clearly. And the game was sitting there, and I think it was on sale. And I'm like, Mom, please, 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 please. Oh, this game, blah, blah, blah. And she got it for me. And yeah, it became one of my favorite games of all time. If not my favorite game. I don't know. It's a toss-up. That's a tough one. There are a lot of games I love. Some of my favorites, though, like, I like story. I like good story first-person shooters. No, it doesn't have to be first-person. Just action games generally. Like, I love the Uncharted games. I love Max Payne deeply. The first Max Payne's incredible. I love Half-Life 1 and 2 and all the episodes. I love... there's so many good ones like that, though. Those story-based shooters. Wolfenstein, the newer Wolfenstein is excellent. The new Doom is excellent. There's just a lot of them. There's a lot of them. And I'm a real sucker for those like retro style, even though they're new, those retro looking and feeling first person shooters, those are really good. I've been playing Strafe is one I like, but even more than that, there's one called Dusk. It's on Steam. It's called Dusk. It's $20. You gotta get it. It's so good. Yeah, it's really good. Well, I think I kind of wandered around enough. I'm coming up on home, so I'm going to call this the end of episode 2, Attack of the Clones. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. It's kind of nice to be able to talk about whatever I want to talk about and nerd out about stuff, and even if you weren't into like the Potter talk or the Call of Duty talk, thanks for letting me do it. Does that make sense? Like, even if nobody listens to this, it's like kind of nice to just be able to be me and talk a little while, and I appreciate that. So yeah, thanks for listening. Let me know in the comments wherever this is. I don't even know how I'm going to send this out yet. I have not even posted one yet. Maybe if it's on YouTube or something, leave me a comment or a like or whatever. Tell me what's good. I'm sorry that the sound quality is so bad, but there's not much I can do about it. So put it on and just try to forgive all the thumping and thudding and whatnots and the wind noise and stuff. All right. May the force be with you and all that fun stuff. Goodbye.